I do want to talk about the Madison, Wisconsin school that took place yesterday. There was misinformation. The call came from a second grade teacher, not a second grade student. That was misinterpreted in the media and corrected by the police chief. Yeah, there is some misinformation we'll get into in a second. But overall, yet another day, another school shooting. Okay? The United States of America is a very violent nation. And that violence that we dish out globally sometimes is dished back at us in the form of blowback. Obviously, 9/11 was one very famous example of that. This is not a controversial thing to say. This is basically the academic consensus on the matter. It's a real principle. It's a real concept called blowback. But outside of that, there's also another interpretation of the imperial boomerang, the justification for all of the violence that we engage with on the global stage, and the normalization of said violence inevitably creates this system where we are being violent to one another. We're being violent to ourselves. And of course, pair that up with worsening material conditions for the average person, and also the readily available access to guns, and you have a powder keg. And that powder keg has erupted already. It's not like it hasn't already exploded. I would say that 83 school shootings in the fiscal year 2024 is the powder keg erupting, right? Like that's not normal. That is abnormal. Hundreds of mass shootings happening every year is abnormal. It's not normal at all. It's the only country, America is the only country on the planet where this happens with regular frequency. And it seems to me like things are only going to get worse if no politicians ever choose to tackle these issues head on with honesty. What is happening? Yeah, why are there so many mass shootings coming out of the mass shooting factory is what we're asking. We know one of the most effective methods of preventing this sort of violence, and I've talked about it a million times over. But of course, no one wants to solve it. I've covered the cultural attitudes that Americans have towards guns yesterday. We watched the horses video, which I think was pretty good, right? And when you have nothing, you hold on to the small things that you do have harder than you normally would. And guns are that thing for many Americans. So there is a very real popular attitude towards having the maximalist position on gun ownership in this country, for sure. It's a lot worse than other OECD nations that don't have this kind of cultural attitude towards gun ownership. But here we are. Another day, another mass shooting in Madison, Wisconsin.
There have now been 488 mass shootings in the United States this year. 10 years ago, 2014, 272 mass shootings. By 2021, the number peaked at 689. Another student and teacher have now been killed. 6 other people were wounded, 2 with life-threatening injuries. Parents waited hours to be reunited with their children, and overnight, authorities identified the shooter who killed herself. Alex Perez is on the scene at the K-12 school in Madison with the latest on the investigation.
Not our Alex
and community
Perez.
Grieving. Good morning, Alex.
A different Alex Perez, an imposter.
Hey, good morning, George. Just a terrifying ordeal for this community. Monday was supposed to mark the start of Spirit Week for this school. Instead, students were running for their lives.
Maybe 6 people injured, at least 2 shot.
This morning, a community devastated. Authorities in Wisconsin working to figure out what led a 15-year-old student investigators have identified as Natalie Samantha Rupnow to open fire, killing a teacher and a fellow student in a study hall classroom with students from different grades.
There have been at least 50 cops.
The suspected shooter using a handgun, police say, injuring at least 6 others, dying of a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
We heard them, and then some people started crying, and then we just waited till the police came.
This is sad. We always heard on the news all over the place, but we didn't think one day that can happen to us here at ALCS.
The chaos unfolding just before 11 a.m. Monday. Authorities from across the state responding to Abundant Life Christian, a private K-12 school, after a second grader called 911.
Don't let that soak in for a minute. a second grade student called 911 at 10:57 a.m. to report a shooting at school.
I saw some officers with long guns headed into the school.
John Diaz de Leon lives across the street.
The older students were running across the parking lot to the church sanctuary. The younger students holding hands were led out to go across the parking lots to the sanctuary.
Terrified parents like Brett and Kyle Grange waiting hours to be reunited with their children.
I was with my friends and I was like crying with them, and then I heard gunshots upstairs.
How grateful.
Yeah, it turns out it wasn't actually a second grade student, but it was actually a second grade teacher that called 911. Just curious, what's significant about the shooting compared to the other 83? Just asking because I don't remember seeing 83 breaking news coverage. Some of the school shootings do actually make it to mainstream. It just depends on like what's going on at the time. But the reason why I think this one is getting a lot of news coverage, like extra news coverage, is also because the shooter is a woman, is a girl, a 15-year-old girl, and that's unique. And the media likes unique narratives like this. It's a private school. It's a Christian school. It's also a female shooter. So all of those three factors combined make this a more interesting story. It's not the first time there has been a female mass shooter, but it is very rare. No, I don't think it's a way to distract from the Luigi case or whatever. I really do want people to understand it does not take much to get people to not pay attention to something. I think people organically lose sight of larger narratives fairly quickly. And there is a structural reason for that. I think it's because of TikTok and because of social media for the most part that like our news cycle moves way faster than it used to. Back in the day, like even the violence was unique, I guess. Sandy Hook carried the news for months. Columbine carried the news for months. And in that process, the only thing that we've gotten is no real solutions to the gun violence. And instead, we just have more guns. And therefore, we have more school shootings. So partially, I mean, part of the reason why it is a quick in and out of the news cycle is because it's just simply more commonplace. And the other reason why people move from one thing to the next is because the media is super decentralized and you're getting blasted with information, new information every single day. So I think that's what factors into it. I don't think that like the drone story, for example, was like implemented as a distraction from something more nefarious because people were hyper focusing on the Luigi thing. Does that make sense? We just don't have any attention span any longer. Like as a collective, we do not have the capacity to pay attention to a news story and really dive into it beyond like 48 hours or maybe even less than that.
How are you that you have your two little ones right next to you right now?
I'm very, very, very thankful. I mean, the gut-wrenching feeling that you feel when you get that notification, there's no, like, you always just hope that never happens, and it happened today.
This morning, investigators looking into social media accounts believed to be the shooters, showing signs of a gravitation towards potential neo-Nazi violence and engagement in forums venerating mass shooters. Posts just minutes before the shooting.
Don't you think the media machine is also kind of built to keep people from focusing on any one story for too long? Yeah. Do you think there are any examples of mainstream media attempting to overpower certain stories? Absolutely. I'll give you a very prominent example of this that was very successful. Palestine. Pro-Palestinian demonstrations were insanely widely attended. Okay? There are still active pro-Palestinian movements happening all around. The media rarely ever talks about it. That right there is a perfect demonstration of mainstream media shifting people's attentions away because of their priorities or the full-throated coverage to the football hooligans in Amsterdam being considered a pogrom. That is a calculated media narrative that was blasted. Now, a lot of that is still organic. A lot of that is organic in the sense that it's not like people are going, ooh, we just got the new, Mossad line, and it's time for us to put forth a pro-Israel sentiment once again to make, to make Israel appear as the victims or anything like that. That's not what this is. It's more so, and Noam Chomsky, I think, talks about this perfectly. It's more so people that get elevated into these positions of power within mainstream media are elevated because of their ideological zealotry, whether that be a Zionist tendency or whether that be pro-capitalist tendencies, whether that be playing the role of someone who will defend healthcare CEOs openly. Like, it might come across as shocking to you when you hear Michael Smerconish on CNN 2 days in a row decry how there was no vigil created for Brian Thompson on that sidewalk where he was, gunned down, and how devastating this is. But the reason why he's in that position, the reason why he's been elevated to that position is because he will play that role of the loyal servant of those with true power in American society. Okay? Most normal people that have a very different attitude about that sort of thing are not going to get to that level of prominence in mainstream media. It is a self-selecting and organic. It's a self-selecting and organic process. It's not deliberately done. It's not done in a way where it's like a cigar smoke clouded room shrouded in mystery where they come up with the next guy that they're going to elevate to a position of power. It doesn't work that way.
Shootings show a photo of a hand making an OK sign in a bathroom stall, sometimes used as a white power sign. Investigators searching the suspect.
By the way, the chatters that showed me this girl's account were correct. I saw the PFP originally and I thought it was a guy. So I thought, oh, I'm not going to cover this. And I still stand by that decision of not covering it. I thought it was a dude. I was wrong. It was actually her. Like, I thought the account that they were sending me, I thought the account that the account that you guys were sending me was not the account of the 15-year-old girl that shot up the school, but instead some random dude who was like an opportunist. Is she trans? Please say no. No, she's not. She is a RIP. You are not beating the himbo allegations. Wait, what? The account that chatters were sending me yesterday seems to be the account of the actual shooter who killed herself. It wasn't that I thought a woman could not do a mass shooting. It was obvious that they very quickly said that the mass shooting was carried out by a woman. I thought the account that you guys were sending me was of a dude. That's why I was like, oh, I'm not, I'm going to wait for more information, which I stand by, for the record. I think it's the appropriate thing to do, and I will continue conducting myself in that way when there are breaking news stories happening. I will always be critical of information that's coming out whenever there is a breaking news story. That is my policy, and I only end up offering additional coverage through a critical lens when there is a sea of misinformation that's coming out from propagandists with a very overt bias. Like whenever people go, oh, the shooter is trans or anything like that. When that happens and there is already confirmation that the shooter is not trans, for example, then I will cover it. Yeah, wasn't chat sharing the fake YouTube Luigi account the day of the capture? Exactly. So that's actually a great example where a lot of chatters were sharing the fake Luigi account, saying like, oh, Luigi sent this, and I kept saying like, I don't think this is, one, it's not confirmed, and two, I don't even know if this is actually Luigi. Like, so sometimes I will apply a critical lens to information that's coming out, but I just wanted to clarify for people who are maybe new here and were in here yesterday. But it's always good to demonstrate caution. Okay, to exercise caution. Now, the account that blocked me and does not like me at all, Slatsism, one of these like TERF magazines. I think Redux is a TERF magazine, isn't it? She actually made contact with the alleged boyfriend of the Wisconsin shooter. He was very graciously provided me the full manifesto, which I verified by having him screen record himself, opening it from a direct link the shooter sent to him via WhatsApp. I told him I would do my best to dispel some of the misinformation and present things as truthfully as I was given them, and I will hold myself to that. She ended up watermarking the manifesto, which is insane. Okay, like I can't believe that she ended up watermarking the manifesto itself. And also, make no mistake, this like the outlet that she writes for is like one of those weird radfem right wing turf outlets, like an anti-trans outlet that she writes for. So just take everything that this person is saying and doing with a grain of salt, okay? Especially considering that the manifesto's authenticity has yet to be confirmed by the police. Why won't they investigate where she got the manifesto from? The doc was private. Well, it seems like she got it from the girl's boyfriend, the alleged boyfriend of this girl. This person or the shooter? No, the person that got access to the manifesto. Slatsism is the person that got access to the manifesto. She is a right-wing, she writes for a right-wing anti-trans outlet called Redux Mag that tries to cover anti-trans commentary from the perspective of being pro-women, okay? I told him I would do my best to dispel some of the misinformation and present things as truthfully as I was given them. And I will hold myself to that. Her boyfriend knew her as Samantha Rupp now. She also went by a different name, one which was also feminine, but adopted the name Samantha. And this was the name her boyfriend says she had on her school identification card. She was a student at Abundant Life. She was born on November 7th, 2009. She was born female and not transgender. Her boyfriend was born male and is not transgender. The reason why she's bringing this up partially is because there were already common narratives. Yes, she's 15 years old. Chaz, she's not explicitly a femcel. She's a Nazi extremist who hates minorities and scum and degeneracy. Yes. How is any of this femcel? She has a boyfriend, admires male shooters, acts tomboyish. It sounds like she's just a right-wing bigot. No, when I say femcel, I mean like she frequented the incel circles, is a groiper. That's what I'm saying. As a 15-year-old, looking at her profile, she is very much a far-right neo-Nazi groiper, okay? It doesn't mean that she's like, I don't know, has no relationship with members of the opposite sex or something, okay? It's just crazy work being 15 and a groiper. I don't think it's that crazy. Groiper, for those of you who don't know, because there's a lot of boomers in here and a lot of people who are not extremely online, is a terminology applied to people who frequent 4chan poll, people who are in Discord circles, who believe in like esoteric neo-Nazi ideas, okay? And yes, 15-year-old is the primary demographic for a groiper. What's shocking here is not that she's a 15-year-old groiper. What's shocking here is that she is a female 15-year-old groiper. Her manifesto was titled War Against Humanity. Her manifesto is 6 pages long. In her manifesto, she spoke about having an extremely difficult relationship with her parents. She also referred to as scum. She also claims her family didn't love her or want her and expresses feeling like the wrong child of her family. She says she had planned to commit a long time ago, but felt committing a shooting was better for evolution rather than just one stupid born. She expressed deep admiration for Pekka Erik Auvinen, Arda Küçükyetim, and Vladislav Rosiliakov. Arda Küçükyetim, I am very familiar with. Arda Küçükyetim is the Eskişehir neo-Nazi groiper in Turkey who tried to do a mass stabbing at a mosque, if I'm not mistaken. He was a ginormous loser, okay? And if you know who he is and you hail him as a hero, that means you are incredibly invested in like white supremacist internet. The United States also arrested white supremacists that inspired the Turkish attacker, for the record. U.S. officials said Monday 2 leaders of a white supremacist group who were also the inspiration for a Turkish youth stabbing 5 people in Eskişehir were arrested. They face charges of seeking to spark a race war and attacks on Jews, immigrants, and members of the LGBTQ community using an online forum known as Terrorgram. Dallas Humber, 34, of Elk Grove, California, and Matthew Allison, 37, of Boise, Idaho, were taken into custody on Friday. Today's indictment charges the defendants with leading a transnational terrorist group dedicated to attacking America's critical infrastructure, targeting a hit list of our country's public officials, and carrying out deadly hate crimes, all in the name of violent white supremacist ideology. Humber and Allison faced multiple charges, including soliciting hate crimes. One of the people that was in these groups basically was like a lone wolf in Eskişehir. His name was Arda, and he did like a mass stabbing attack. They were Humber and Allison faced multiple charges, including soliciting hate crime and the murder of federal officials, distributing bomb-making instructions, and conspiring to provide material support to terrorists. According to the indictment, Humber and Allison used the encrypted Telegram platform to promote their white supremacist ideology and communicated with followers on a forum dubbed the Terrorgram Collective. They promoted the belief that violence and terrorism are necessary to ignite a race war and accelerate the collapse of the government and the rise of a white ethno-state. It said Humber and Allison allegedly joined Terrorgram in 2019 and became leaders of the group in 2022. After another leader was arrested, followers were led to believe they would become saints by committing an attack in furtherance of white supremacist accelerationism, the indictment said. At least 2 attacks have been linked to Terrorgram, a live stream stabbing of 5 people by an 18-year-old man outside of a mosque in Turkey on August 12th, and the fatal shooting of 2 men at a gay bar in the Slovakian capital of Bratislava in October 2022. The Turkish attacker allegedly stated in a manifesto that he wanted to be recognized as a saint, and the 19-year-old Bratislava assailant sent his manifesto to Allison and then killed himself, the indictment said. The Turkish attacker, identified as Arda K, I believe is his name, that she was talking about. Arda Küçükyetim, the Madison, Wisconsin school shooter also brought his name up in the manifesto, was arrested on charges of attempts at multiple murders after he fled the scene. His victims were mostly elderly people resting outside the mosque in central Turkey's Eskişehir. Arda Küçükyetim was wearing a helmet and a skull mask similar to those worn by white supremacists in the United States. This is what happens in the most reductive ways possible. I will cover this as, this is what happens when you do too much online. Bu tipler Türkiye'de cidden ilan Twitter'ı alınca çoğaldı. Resmen ABD'deki sorunu iptal ediyorlar. İnseller falan oluştu hep burada. Yeah. Apparently, Twitter becoming so firmly far right and so open to neo-Nazi sentiment has caused incel movements and neo-Nazi movements to grow in popularity online amongst the Turkish youth as well. Ameliyana says that they are basically, America is basically exporting this sort of violent ideology and radicalization online. They have saints on Terrorgram and even a whole ass calendar to celebrate the dates of their attacks. They try to goad more attacks by saying they will saint you if you do well enough. Yeah. This is yet another danger of not having any third spaces, not having any sense of community, not really existing in the real world around other human beings, and only finding a sense of common purpose online as you desperately seek out more and more hyper-focused groups, echo chambers online. Okay? This is what happens when you have very little association with the real world and spend a whole bit of time, and it, I think, accelerated during COVID as well because people just simply could not go outside, right? Where some people found my community, some people found this community, other people found these insane right-wing communities that, and they required more and more closeness with other people, and ultimately moved further and further down the steps of radicalization. This is why I always urge people to snap themselves out of the hug boxes that they exist online. Okay? It's a terrifying prospect. Why would a girl in the Midwest be so inspired by a Turkish neo-Nazi? Why would a Turkish neo-Nazi be so inspired by American neo-Nazis? It's because it is a global network of like-minded fascists, older fascists that are actively trying to radicalize younger people into fascism and successfully doing so, especially when they meet people in their most vulnerable moments. There's some information. We could potentially go through the manifesto, but I think it's more interesting. Like just her background in and of itself is more interesting, especially because you got some audio perverts in the chat. Jesus Christ! Wait, really? There was running water. No big deal, though. There is no running water. N-word on stream. Yes, there is apparently slurs on the manifesto. Be a goddamn adult, okay? Like, calm the down. I can't believe a neo-Nazi's manifesto has slurs in it. Who would have thought a neo-Nazi? She was a neo-Nazi? Yes. Yeah, you guys should cancel her. Oh, yeah, the shirt is a Columbine reference, I guess. On the right, today's Madison, Wisconsin school shooter, Samantha Rupp. No. The shirt she wore clearly referenced the Columbine school shooting. One of the Columbine shooters wore that exact shirt. She also frequented forums where school shooters were idolized, so it has nothing to do with the band, but the symbolism. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, good luck canceling her. I think she's already canceled herself. You know, she killed herself. She did a school shooting in a... Apparently, one of the people that was mentioned in her, this is the school shooter, one of the people mentioned in her, this is AF Post, which is also another neo-Nazi America First Post. It's a literal neo-Nazi news network, basically. Radfem Hitler, also known as Hollow Earth Turf, deactivated after being named in the Wisconsin School Shooters Manifesto. The shooter said Radfem Hitler is vindicated now. The shooter also disparaged moids and foids. The leak reportedly comes from the shooter's Discord. I don't know if that's real or not, and it's a what do you call it? It's America First Post. So I'm not going to go along with this, just so you know. I'm just letting you know that these are there are a bunch of common accounts that end up posting misinformation. And the America First Post, if you see anything from those guys, remember that they have a very specific interest in mind. Chatters are saying they're fake, but yeah, you know, it's just the RFH thing is fake. Okay. So I do want to mention there was a comment on our last tweet that said, I can't wait until she does it. Yeah. One thing to also remember is that not only is like America First or Libs of TikTok and many other outlets are many other common purveyors and disseminators of misinformation will actively use any and every opportunity to basically push their own version of propaganda. But even this, the reason why I mentioned like the biases of the person that investigated these matters, the reason why I mentioned that is because I want you to also look at all of this information with a grain of salt as well, considering that none of this has been officially confirmed yet. However, the reason why I brought this up and the reason why I brought up the misinformation is because Libs of TikTok herself immediately went, the Madison school shooter complained about the patriarchy and wrote that every single male must be wiped out from babies to the elderly. Only then women will be free to create a new world. Leftism really destroys lives. And she got this information from Mr. Andy No. And then it turned out that the shooter actually was a neo-Nazi. Far-right neo-Nazi femcel who followed white supremacist and Groyper accounts. Not a surprise that Libs of TikTok is trying to paint her as a leftist. If you think feminism is kill all men, then yeah, you're going to misread everything that's happening. So she tweeted it and then deleted it. These guys have one speed, okay? Immediately blame the left. Immediately blame like what you consider to be the left. No matter what happens. The manifesto was the only document that says she was 15 before law enforcement corrected from 17 to 15. So I think it's likely the manifesto is real. Yeah, there are some reasons as to why I'm still presenting this person's investigation. And the reasons are because Slatsism's information, regardless of putting your own watermark on a manifesto of a neo-Nazi, which is insane to do to begin with, but the reasons as to why I'm saying that this is most likely correct is because a lot of the information that has come out after, a lot of the information that has come out in mainstream media that was verified afterwards actually confirms some of the stuff that she had uncovered already. Police have now corrected the record live and confirmed the shooter was 15 as stated in the manifesto I posted here earlier. Previous mainstream media reports claiming the shooter was 17 were incorrect.
Shooter are dead. Ready?
Yes.
All right, 3 people, including the shooter, are dead. Identified the shooter for you. A teacher and a teenage student were pronounced dead at the scene. 6 other students and a teacher were injured and taken to area hospitals. 2 students remain in critical condition and have life-threatening injuries. A teacher and 3 students were treated for non-life-threatening injuries, and 2 of those have been released are discharged from the area hospital.
I'm just going to jump in. It's 2 students in critical condition, and then 4, including a teacher, and 3 students with those non-life-threatening injuries.
Thank you.
Lucas from the State Journal. How did this 15-year-old get a hold of this gun? Do you know?
Why are they so quick to release a school shooter manifesto? They're not. The media is very protective over stuff like this, and oftentimes will refuse to release the manifesto of any shooter. But they especially are, they're not, mainstream media usually won't release the manifesto. They'll basically point to it if they have access to it. They'll point to it to ascribe motive, but it's not mainstream media that released the manifesto. It's some random turf person who works for Redux Mag, which is like an anti-trans outlet, a turf outlet. They didn't release Luigi's manifesto. They only made inferences to it. Part of the reason why they don't release manifestos is because they don't want to urge copycats. They don't want to create copycats. How was Lassism able to get a hold of this privileged info? I mean, she talks about it here. She dug deep and found the alleged boyfriend of the Wisconsin shooter, and he had gotten the full manifesto linked to him in a WhatsApp message. So he was able to send it to her. She didn't release it, just took snippets from it at their leisure. That's the other part of it as well. But yeah, there are 6 pages total, according to Slatsism. And this is some of the screenshots. War against humanity, the creation of a disaster. Why is this so unfair? Hatred, something everyone has gotten in a sense. Some people think it's pure nothing, but because the hate they make, it ends up killing them without knowing it, which go right ahead. I don't mind, but kind of do at the same time. What the fuck? Okay. One thing that I immediately noticed when I was reading this was like the literacy rates are abysmal in this fucking country. Okay. I know that I joked about Luigi Mangione's manifesto having maybe too much brevity. She is 15 years old, so that probably is a part of it. But Jesus Christ, you think the parents will go to jail? Potentially. Idaho anarchist here, and you swayed me on gun control. I was already pro-gun control, but not very invested in it. That's probably the most you're going to sway anyone from Idaho. The human scum is color and the way people are raised. I've grown around people who do not care or give one single care in the world and smoke their lungs out with weed and drink as much as they like as they can. Like my own father, I've grown to hate people in society. It's truly not my fault, though it never was. But all of you in the world have done to me is pick and tease me. You've pushed me into a corner with no help whatsoever. Yeah, it almost reads like it almost reads like it was like written in a different language and then translated through like a Google AI translator. Humanity is filth. I don't like filth, nor I want to live in it, nor should anyone else. I know it follows me and how it was followed me, and I will follow everyone because of how the world is rumored. There were so many things I wanted to do as a kid, yet I can admit I was afraid of other kids and also even with my own parents, but I don't even trust them. And at the age as well, I never will. My parents are scum. There's nothing that will save me. It's like an angsty teenager, except many people go through that phase in their lives. They don't end up on pro-terror telegrams and also live in the United States of America so they can go out and get a gun or get their parents to get them a gun and then, shoot people with that gun. That's the problem. Okay? You can't fix all of these issues, but if you want to tackle at least some of the common denominators here, any number of different things will do. This is, as is the case of every other school shooting, as is the case with every other mass shooting in general, virtually all gun violence has one singular common denominator, and that is absolutely the readily available nature of guns in the United States of America. I don't know, not everyone has abused Hasan. Her parents seem extra bad. We don't know anything about her parents. I am not going to make inferences about her parents. I'm not going to make inferences about anything other than tangible things that I can verify. And given if the manifesto is the real manifesto, I think that the tangible things that you could verify are that like she definitely is she's definitely f***ed up in the head, but also ventured into online spaces that are incredibly far right. But I'm certain that if your 15-year-old has not only become a neo-Nazi, but like straight up is like in Terrorgram, a telegram specifically dedicated to like creating white nationalist race riot accelerationist, like race war accelerationist, then yeah, your parents failed pretty spectacularly. Okay. The issue here is that a lot of the angst and anger and resentment that she experiences is like fairly commonplace for a 15-year-old. Okay. What's not so common is how these 15-year-olds, and when they're even younger than 15, basically, find themselves in the throes of right-wing radicalization. If you care about the ideology of the shooter, and I don't even think that the ideology of the shooter matters all that much in this process. It doesn't matter what their background is. It doesn't matter what their ideology is. If you want to tackle the issue of gun violence, you have to tackle guns in general. And I do treat many of this other fascinations as a simple mechanism of distraction. Like ultimately, there are obviously neo-Nazis and whatnot all around the country, all around the planet, as a matter of fact. She even seemingly mentions the Turkish one. And the Turkish neo-Nazi also comes from that same telegram. The difference with the Turkish one was that he had a knife. Now you can say she only was able to kill 6 people or 2 people, herself included, so technically 3. Whereas the shooter in Turkey, or the knife attack in Turkey, killed 5 people. But the targets were different. The situation was different, and there are plenty of other lone wolf, white supremacist, neo-Nazi terrorists that end up killing far more than 5 people. You never count your own like on posts? Yeah. I don't even trust them, and at that age I didn't well, and my parents are scum. There's nothing that will save them to make me think good of them ever again. No family ever trust and never trust society. There's 2 people and only 2 people I would trust, one partially and one I would never doubt. I can agree that I don't know what I'm doing in my life, but neither my parents or anyone around me. I've changed and I will not go back to that ever again. I'm hard and I'm different. The situation of a lifetime is get the out moment and don't come back. I will never go back and nag my way through life. It's not even my fault though. It's everyone else's. It has to be theirs and not mine. It's pure idiotic from people to cause this, but it's a good thing that happens. Blah, blah, blah, blah, blah. Holy shit. Maybe you'll see me as a weirdo, a freak, just as some of you do now, but I'm not like the others. I would never want to be like them. And then the rest of it has a bunch of N-words peppered into it. Once you know, you'll never be proven guilty on all charges that we should be killed in a good way, in a way that's simple and more painful than anything. Revolution and population. The revolution should be well. The population should be well, but it's not. It never will be. I want to change that, but will I truly? What? I can't. She talks about black people. She says N-words, though worse. Once you sleep with one, you are one. I don't care who you think you are or what you've done good for this world. 15 years old, man. I want people to understand. 15 years old. Yeah, it's what's shocking is like having this opinion when you're in Madison, Wisconsin. There are like 300 total black people in Madison, Wisconsin. That's part of the reason. That's part of the problem, is that segregated communities end up churning out these sorts of unimaginably racist results in general. Yeah, there's moments in the manifesto where she says she knows her words or whatever, but some more of the Wisconsin shooter info. 3rd page, her boyfriend had known her for 2 years. They were in a long-distance relationship and never met in person. They met on social media. He says she never previously expressed any desire to commit a shooting, only sent him her manifesto the day of the shooting. Timestamps of their messages shown to me demonstrate she sent it to him via WhatsApp. She posted on Twitter. Shooting occurred on, she posted on Twitter 11:50 a.m. Eastern. The shooting occurred at 11:57 a.m. Eastern. He did not see her message until 1:12 p.m. Eastern, at which point the act had been committed and she was already deceased. He describes her as being kind, generous towards him, and cheerful. He describes her as always making him gifts and never expecting anything in return. Oh, here are some of the mentions. One true ideal of so-called future, the future plan of revenge from its own inspiration and more, leading more. True inspiration of mind of thought passed on from others rather than rotting. Like everyone else, simply a guy who knew what he was doing, not ruining his life instead. Pekka Erik Auvinen was one of her inspirations. The other one was Arda Küçükyetim, the Turkish stabber, puts their deaths down as well, like saints. And then 18-year-old Vladislav Rosilyakov. There's something weird about his boyfriend. He claims to not have known, but also claims that he tried to tell her not to for 2 years. His Twitter is also Nazi coded to the max. He's weird as yeah. I think these guys are all in probably Terrorgram. Please look up the black population of Madison, Wisconsin. I did. It's 7%. I'm exaggerating when I say there's only 100 black people in Madison, Wisconsin. I did yesterday. Why are you being so? It's half the rate of the black Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin. No, I didn't say 3%. I said there's probably 1,000 or probably 100 black people in Madison, Wisconsin total. I'm exaggerating. I looked it up yesterday and I said it's 75% white, 7% black. I said 300. Sorry, I didn't say 3%. This is the person you guest starred? Oh, yeah, this is one of the people that I guest starred. Are you going to say that I'm doing misinformation about Madison, Wisconsin because of the hyperbole that I used? What are we doing, man? I didn't say 3%, you idiot. I said 300 total black people in Madison, Wisconsin, when I know the actual number is 7.3%. Why do you guys hyper focus on this dumbest shit? 7% also is half the rate of the national average. It's just pedantry, dude. I know. Listening in the periphery. Okay, listening in the periphery is a little bit crazier than just doing this, though, don't you think? You literally misheard what I said, got upset about the thing that I was, the hyperbole I was engaging in, and you spammed it 3 times. What the? Do you feel like what you did was productive? But if a population is 1 million, 3% is different from 7%. Okay, I'm giving you a week off because yesterday I covered Madison, Wisconsin's black population at 7%. It is completely, it is like I know what the actual population number is, and I didn't even ever say 3%. You imagined it. You hallucinated me saying that, and you're now being incredibly annoying about it. I hope you understand that not a single person in this chat considers you to be a hypercritical intellectual giant, but instead a annoying derailer for purely selfish purposes. You can continue watching. You can continue mishearing me, but you're not going to be able to keep writing in the chat for at least a week. Oh. On page 4 of her manifesto, Samantha says she acquired the weapons to commit the shooting through lies, manipulation, and my father's stupidity. Her boyfriend says he was aware that there was a gun in her gun safe in her house, but does not know how she got access to it. Some news sources, ABC and AP, yeah. So the rest of it is like, now that I've gotten some assurances, I will not be suspended for posting the final pages. Here's the pages 5 and 6, the final 2 pages of the manifesto. Rupp now talks about her extremely difficult relationship with her father, notes that her parents had divorced multiple times, and that her mother struggled with drug addiction. She also implies her father was an alcoholic. She expresses that she had been bullied at school, something her boyfriend emphasized to me as being a big factor in her pessimism about her life and anger towards other people. Court records I have seen show she is telling the truth about the repeat divorces in her family and ongoing legal battles between her mother and her father. As a note, to address the dumbass comments I keep getting, 1, I watermarked them so journalists can't steal them. Journalists don't do any of their actual work anymore. What are you going to do, a DMCA on a neo-Nazis manifesto? What kind of freak-ass shit is this? Like your journalism in this instance should stand on its own, you know? And I'm obviously, like, I obviously personally am like, I think she did do decent journalism in this story, okay? It's just wild because once again, when you've got like Twitter brain, when you're a Twitter brain turf here, shocking is like having this opinion when you're in Madison, Wisconsin. There are like 300 total black people in Madison, Wisconsin. That's part of the reason. That's part of the problem. What's shocking? Yeah, I didn't say there was 3%. Stupid moron. I already did ban that chatter. I banned him for a week. Anyway, it's also obviously not serious. It's not sincere. So I guess the point is, another trans Maddie, thank you for the 20 gifted subs. The point is that it wasn't, the shooter wasn't trans. The shooter was, yet to everyone's surprise, another neo-Nazi. But her political worldview is not, in my opinion, the most important part of the story. If your goal is to actively de-radicalize larger swaths of the population, if your goal is to, even without actively de-radicalizing larger swaths of the population, but to just lower the gun violence metrics, then you have to tackle guns as a part of the problem, because guns are, regardless of how much you enjoy them, the primary reason, the common denominator as to why America has so much more gun violence than any other country. Yeah. Natalie Samantha Rupp now, Reuters has confirmed the identity, and that means that, I mean, this also, this is what she had posted before anyone else in mainstream media. So that's what leads me to believe the accuracy of her journalism. I sincerely apologize. Full page 4. I had meant to post this and crop the Zoom in the main introduction and realized that in the chaos I didn't do that and upload it. Here's full page 4. She continued to list off killers she admired. There are also others I admire: Eric Harris, Dylan Klebold, Patrick Woods, Crucius, Guilherme Tauchi, plus many, many other people. Many more people. I was born November 7th, 2009, exactly 2 years after the Pecos attack. Nobody knows why I'm doing this. I got the weapons and lies by manipulation of my father's stupidity. I planned on shooting myself a while ago, but maybe it's better for evolution rather than just one stupid, boring suicide. It's crazy that someone born in 2009 is already, getting a weapon and doing school shootings. Like, that's wild. But yeah. Now let's get back to mainstream coverage.
At shooters home overnight, their parents cooperating and speaking with police.
How does any 15-year-old get a hold of a gun? We are certainly speaking and talking with the parents who are cooperating to determine if they were gun owners and if they had guns.
And it remains unclear just when this school might reopen. And authorities say, as you just heard, they continue to work to figure out how that 15-year-old got a handgun. George?
What do we know about security at the school, Alex?
Well, George, we know this school does not have a resource officer, nor do they have metal detectors, but officials say they do have cameras inside the school that are monitored, and teachers and staff are trained to visually scan students every day looking for any potential threats. Officials say teachers and staff here did everything they were supposed to do. George?
Alex Perez, thanks.
Can you help me understand why a 15-year-old can be on a popular Telegram group called Terragram, but the FBI won't stop the shit despite how much our taxes give them? I know for a fact that the FBI has stopped certain Telegram groups in the past and shuttered them completely and arrested some of the people that operated those Telegram groups. There are many such cases. I suspect that part of the reason why they haven't tackled Terrorgram is either one, because it's international, or two, because they're actively monitoring it so that at the end of the process of yet another terror attack or whatever, they can turn around and say this person was on our radar. Telegram is also a Russian-owned platform, so that makes it a little bit trickier. The CEO actually was arrested, if I'm not mistaken, in France. If you remember, he lived in Dubai specifically so that he wouldn't get into trouble. So they can't rate everyone who says anything concerning online. Yeah, the FBI doesn't have a built-in backdoor access to Telegram like it does to other social media we have as well. That's true. Well, for now. But obviously, it doesn't even matter if they have built-in background or backdoor access to other social media platforms. They still don't do anything about it. It's not like they use it in the apprehension of people who are about to commit acts of terror. The Accelerationist app, how Telegram became the center of gravity for a new breed of domestic terrorists. Like, Telegram being outside of the sphere of American law enforcement agencies also obviously creates a unique space for them as like the primary as the primary application that people can use to get information out directly. Like, this is what Hamas uses as their official communications for the most part. That's part of the reason. That's like, if there is any sort of journalistic value to it, that's the one aspect of Telegram that I guess allows this kind of perspective to be heard by journalists who will cover it in a critical lens, for sure, but still utilize it to get information out as quickly as possible. But for the most part, Telegram, I would say, is primarily focused on you know, some of the most, some of the most active terror organization happening on every side of every political equation, good or bad, whatever you personally think. Like, it's just like, famously, Israel had the Telegram group, like the pro-Israeli terror Telegram group, where they would like celebrate the deaths of all the people in Gaza. It was so popular that the Israeli government created their own version of the Telegram group that was a little bit more sanitized, but still played the same purpose. It was not actually sanitized at all. It was still devastating. But yes, many of the far-right neo-Nazi terror groups, many of the far-right neo-Nazi terror groups basically operate on there with free reign. They simply do not comply with the request for access when presented by a foreign government. After the CEO arrest, they began to comply willingly. Yeah. Also, to be noted, Telegram is very well known to be able to shut down so many channels. They see this shit and allow it to fester. Yeah. What? Far left to let? Telegram is also a bunch of groups full of cops just catfishing each other by accident for drug sales, etc. Yeah, that too. How long before they really come after Discord? Discord is nowhere near as much of a fed bait as Telegram. Discord has very similar groups as well, except Discord in and of itself is an American company. Discord complies with federal law enforcement requests. Telegram does not. That's the major. WhatsApp is cooked. WhatsApp is owned by Facebook. What are we talking about? Of course, every single social media platform you use to communicate with others, if you're writing on there that's illegal, good luck. Have fun. You might as well be writing it directly to a federal law enforcement officer, okay? Anyway, methods of communication aren't the issue here. There are points of radicalization that occur in every space online, okay? YouTube plays a very formative role in radicalizing people and pushing them towards the far right. Discord also plays a role in this. Telegram is the final point of it. It's the 8chan to the 4chan, if that makes sense. There are definitely better communication apps like Signal and XMPP. Anything that's end-to-end encrypted and open source is a better alternative to Telegram and WhatsApp and the like. I mean, I don't even know if Signal is good, but I'm pretty sure they also cooperate with federal law enforcement when necessary. But the point is, yes, there are a shit ton of groups like this online. They exist. And I don't think you can actually actively pursue every single person that says things like this or has these kinds of associations and leanings, ideological leanings. And I'm not so certain that the federal government would even want to go after them. I think they're more predisposed with going after, campus protesters against Israel and the like. So it's not, you can't tackle this issue. You can't tackle this issue by just like attacking the platforms where this kind of communication happens.